Hi friends, welcome to Law Chat with Girija. I'm Girija Patel, your host for Law Chat, and I am so excited for you to join us today. I have some amazing guests on Law Chat, and they're here to share their experiences and entrepreneurial journey with us, and through their storytelling, mentorship with us, because that is the whole point. We are all entrepreneurs and we're all on a journey, and learning from one another is the best way for us to move forward in our journey as well. And I have amazing guests who are so willing and ready to share their stories with us, their challenges and their victories and their achievements, and also their mindset. I just can't wait to share that with you, and I also just can't wait to have that conversation with them. It's such a privilege to have each and every one of them here with us today, and also it's such a privilege to have you listening in and tuning in. So let's dive in to Law Chat with Girija. Hi all, welcome to Law Chat with Girija. I have such a special guest on today's show with us. Have you ever thought about what it looks like to purchase a new business? And with 2020 in the past, but also it brought in a lot of transition. It brought in a lot of pivots, and it brought in also a lot of diversification for businesses and for people. And so I know there's a lot of people out there that are looking to purchase new businesses, looking to purchase businesses that are existing, not starting from the ground up, but something that's already there. And so today's guest, Devina Bhojwani, who is a special friend of mine, is also, in my opinion, an expert in this area. She has purchased many businesses, existing businesses. She used to own Gymboree franchises in Houston, Texas. And now she is the president and co-owner of Idea Lab International. It's a tech space for kids and a science space for kids. It is just so cool. And I just can't wait to hear all things about how do you start a business that's already there and make it your own. So welcome to the show, Devina. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me, Girija. This is the highlight of my day, and I'm super excited to be here.
I just love it because I get to chat with you during the day. Well, welcome. And, I've said it before also that Law Chat is really mentorship through storytelling. And I love when I have such amazing people on my show because they're able to share with us different aspects of entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is not just building something from ground up. So tell me, where did this journey start for you, and how did this even fall into your lap?
Yeah, I like the words you use, Girija, fall into your lap, because I think that's truly what I think of when I look back at my journey. So I'll start back to my original career started actually in oil and gas. So I've mostly done finance, accounting roles in the oil and gas sector. Got my MBA at Rice University, was living the dream job of working in a decision support group where we were working on financial planning, forecasting in the oil and gas sector. In this case, it was deep water drilling that this company was doing. And then I had my first child and went back to work. I said, I want to work. And then I quickly realized that, oh my gosh, this is like a whole different, being a mom, trying to balance a full demanding corporate career. And, I probably speak for most women on listening to your podcast, that we're trying to balance it along with our spouses who also probably have high-strung careers. So that's what made me really take a pause in my own journey and figure out, what do I really want to do next? And I knew I was passionate about education. A lot of our decisions, me and my husband, have been around education. We moved ourselves from Dubai to Houston to pursue MBAs at Rice University because of that whole pursuit of strong education. So that led us into investing in Gymboree Play and Music Centers. It's an indoor playscape where babies take their first steps, and that's where my daughter took her first, started crawling there, started walking, and we purchased existing locations, and we ran and operated them for about 8 years. And, the one thing nobody tells you, that if once you start your journey into small business ownership, all these different opportunities just, like you said, fall into your lap or come across your path that maybe normally would not have. That's what's really changed my career track. So we've done some angel investing since that time. We sold the Gymborees after running them for 8 years. I was the primary operator. I say we because it was an investment together with my husband. And then in the meantime, we also invested in a franchise called Idea Lab Kids, which is I switched my role from being a franchisee to being a franchisor. It's a STEM-based education after-school franchise, and we're pretty young in the franchising space. We've been around for 4 years franchising, and we have 15 operating locations currently. 7 of them are right here in Texas.
I mean, you say just, or you say then. I mean, it's just like you've done so much. And you've taken such big leaps. And one thing I do want to point out is that I really appreciate how you say we. I think a lot of times we forget that there is a we, especially in a committed relationship when you're running the household together. And it's really a partnership. And to gain a rhythm in the, thing called life, you need to have a partnership with your spouse or your significant other. And I love that that's where you guys started. And I probably have a lot of insider information because we are good friends. And so I see that though. I see that you guys work as a partnership, whatever you're doing, whether it's something that he enjoys or whether it's something you enjoy, I see that it's a partnership. So before we even go into how you went from Gymboree and how you, decided that, yes, let's invest in this. How does it start from home first for those of us that are in those relationships and we are looking to find some type of synergy if we, or just how to navigate that? So what are some ways that you navigate that with your spouse?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, Girija, because that truly is support, that you need at home and in every walk of our day, right? Whether it's picking up the kids from school to, I have this meeting that I really have to focus on. Your spouse kind of also balances around you with that. One thing I will say here is when we started looking at the Gymboree investment, all our conversations throughout the day ended up being around business. And at points at the dinner table, I would, stop ourselves and be like, is this what we are truly turning into? But we were so passionate, or we are so passionate about the investments we make that, that truly drives us. It might not be for everybody. Some people might look into my life and think that it's too chaotic, too crazy. She's booked up all the time. But it's a true passion and a drive for both of us. I have the passion around education, and my husband brings in the passion around business and investing. He came from a family of entrepreneurs, so we were surrounded by that, and we kind of knew that that would be our drive. His full-time day gig is day trading. He is a trader at Shell, and then he also has these investments in these other firms. So truly a partnership with your spouse. And, I think, like I said, it might not be for everybody. And if it's not, that's absolutely okay if it doesn't rock your boat. But having that conversation with your spouse on, are we doing this? Are we going to do this together? And, there are ebb and flows. I'm sure you've had this through your career, Girija. There are times where you'll be, working on that project 70, 80 hours in the week, and you need that balance with your spouse, with your family, even your kids. I mean, now I feel, now that my kids are older, they're pulled into our projects and they're involved in it as well, and all the learnings they get from it.
I love that because it's truly, I feel that to find, you say balance, I feel like there's, and sometimes we just all call it different, but in my world, it's more like a rhythm or a integration of work and life and all the other things that we want to do, because it's really hard to find a balance. And I think that making it a family project where as a family you are committed and invested in each other's pursuit of passion or pursuit of whatever they're doing, I think really helps. When we invest in our children and we're pouring into their projects, they're also seeing how fun it is to have a family support where it's not just them doing it alone, but there's full family support there. And I think that really adds wonder to your journey, but then also to how successful you are in what you're doing. So I love that you shared that with us. So Gymboree, and I know that you said education is your passion. And so how do you keep that at the core of how you're trying to find a business? So before you jumped into Gymboree, what were some of the changes that you had to make, and how did you make those changes? Mindset, were they hard decisions? What happened?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I would start with probably the first mindset shift is a risk appetite. is being comfortable with not having that monthly salary if you're giving up a salary, or that income that's coming in, because now you're pivoting from that into small business ownership, where you might have months where you have a pandemic, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
last year, I'm sure there were small business owners that suffered, that took a hit, dependent on PPP. So really being comfortable with that risk appetite and saying, okay, am I okay and comfortable with that worst case scenario if this truly does happen, in my case. The second mindset shift was being a leader, because at the end of the day, when you own an organization, everybody within that organization, even if it's one or two employees, Girja, are looking up to you. And
Mm-hmm.
you are leading by example. Yes, sure, that might happen in your corporate careers as well, but we hear this from our corporate folk all the time is, I'm done at 5 p.m. and that's the
Yeah.
end of my day. I'm no longer, working or thinking or on the clock. But with small business ownership, you might get a call in the middle of the night where somebody's child is sick, and now that teacher in the morning cannot show up to teach your class. And you have to have empathy to understand that situation that that person is in,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to jump in and scramble because that's usually what's going to happen in that situation, to backfill for what that person's going through. So really, I think it's a mindset shift, and knowing, are you comfortable with that mindset shift? And I'll give you an example here. When we were looking at the Gymboree franchise, we were buying existing locations, so we did not open our businesses from scratch. A lot of my journey has been growth via acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm inspired by people who start projects from scratch, Girja, you yourself, you've started My Contract Buddy. And, when you tell me about it personally, I feel so inspired by you, because I think that's a different level for me. I can't relate to that as much. So, but in terms of, growth via acquisition, so when I started looking at this business, I was talking to the owner. She had owned for 22 years, and I was stepping into these really big shoes. I would try to visualize, can I do what she's doing? And she would have, monthly meetings with her staff members. She had about 50 to 60 staff members across all locations. And she was the motivating factor that brought this group together. All women, men who were passionate around, educating babies, teaching them gross and fine motor skills and things like that. So that to me was my first step is, if I couldn't see myself if I didn't see that same passion and that drive, I don't think I would have been able to do justice to
Mm-hmm.
that investment and, grow it beyond what she had already done to that business.
Mm. I love that. I mean, first of all, so much insight on the mindset, like mindset for shift of the appetite for risk, and then also leadership. I mean, I think sometimes we just kind of dive into owning, but then don't know how to be a leader. And you're so right. Like eventually you have to be a leader, and you're playing many different roles in your business. You're not just playing, okay, I'm going to buy or I'm going to start. Let's see what happens. And
Mhm.
I love that there was so much intention behind taking those first steps. And then even purchasing Gymboree, you're not purchasing and just mainly looking at, oh, what are my numbers? Does this make sense? But also, does it make sense? Can I visualize myself? And I love that, exercise of visualizing and seeing if you can actually pursue this. And I think sometimes we may miss that mark when we're just looking at things, and a lot of times get into the numbers,
Mhm.
right? I hate to interrupt this awesome conversation, but I have to stop and talk with you about the number one thing I'm asked about by entrepreneurs: contracts. They're vital to any business relationship and to protect your business. But I also know that entrepreneurs, especially when you're starting up, money is tight. But I would never want you to compromise on a strong legal foundation. So enter yourcontractbuddy.com, a website created by me with contract templates created and drafted by me and fellow industry partners. They're ready to use and easy to plug in immediately. And they are not restricted to any specific state. So yourcontractbuddy.com is sponsoring this episode, and you and your listener can get 10% off right now with code LAWCHAT. Yes, you heard me right. 10% off right now with code LAWCHAT. And now back to our awesome conversation. And so, you're looking at the mindset, you've done visualization. What are some other things that you're looking at before you purchased Gymboree? Like what,
Sure.
or any other business actually?
Yeah, no, and for anyone out there looking at businesses, right? We always try to read books and we look up what are the main metrics. And I like that you mentioned numbers because honestly, that's not the number one factor. To me, numbers would be your third factor. I would probably
Mm,
with your passion for that business, which I've spoken some about here. In my case, was education, being able to relate to that business, and secondly, the growth opportunities. That was even more in the forefront than the numbers because the numbers will
mm-hmm.
be what they are. It might not be a performing location; it might be an average location. I purchased several of these locations and one was high growth, one was not. And I had to figure out, okay, what are the growth opportunities that I see that I could do for those centers. And for what I did, and exercise helped me, regardless whether you need it or not, I would highly encourage anyone who's looking at a business to make a business plan. Write down, what will you do in the first 3 months, in the first 6 months, in the first 12 months. I still call them first 12 months because it's truly, you're still learning, you're getting your feet wet, and it's a whirlwind. I mean, those first couple of years of business ownership, I feel like were just a blur for me. I had a toddler at home. I was pregnant with my second one. And I had, I'd inherited these 50 some employees that came with this business. So I had my new babies to kind of take care of.
And by no means was that easy, sure, than working in a corporate job, but it may have given you flexibility that you were looking for. And I think that's amazing. So back to what you were saying, making, creating those mindsets, having a visualization and seeing if you can truly be passionate about this and see yourself in the next year, 5 years, 10 years in this business, but then also creating a business plan and forecasting. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And then what else is part of your methodology in acquisition?
So the industry really matters to me. If you do not relate to that industry, then take 10 steps back and find that right industry. A lot of people over my journey have asked me, how do I do this? How did you know that this was the right business for you?
Yeah.
Go talk to as many people as you can, and we'll all be surprised the moment you ask somebody, an entrepreneur or even someone who's in a corporate field, about their positions or about their world. They'll bring you in to what a day is like in their shoes, and that it never hurts us because that's when you can truly visualize, can I see myself investing in a business that's maybe in the fitness space, if you're truly
Mm-hmm.
who's driven by fitness, or maybe you have a drive with pets or kids, so that will expose you to different opportunities. And I would say talk to business brokers. Those are the best out there in terms of exposing you to a variety of things. It's there's e-commerce businesses right now even that somebody might have a passion for. If you're a data person or a numbers person or a marketing person, maybe looking at something in that space might give you more drive and passion. So really, I think exposing yourself to as many opportunities as you can out there
Mm-hmm.
and learning. We're all learning. I truly believe in that we're learning every day from each other.
Yeah.
And knowing what does Girija do maybe in all these various projects that you have on your plate.
I love that. Where do you find business brokers? Like, how do you Google this? Like, how do you find them?
Yeah, Google is your friend, right? Yeah, you can Google this, but there are listings and directories of business brokers. A great
Mm-hmm.
website to look at is bizbuysell.com. It's bizbuy sell.com. And that has businesses listed on there for sale. But the one thing to note about a business broker is, as a buyer of a business, they will not charge you anything. It's kind of like selling your house. So the person who's selling it is the one who pays the commission. So a lot of people might hesitate to say, oh, I don't want to get a business broker because I might have to pay them a portion of what I'm investing. I want to save my investment for the true investment in
Yeah.
this. I would definitely say, don't worry about that. You talk to as many business brokers as you can.
What a great advice. I didn't even know that. That's great advice. It's like, I'm like, I almost want to go and look at something right now. I love that. And so when you are looking at whether it was, Gymboree or Idea Lab, now that you've done, I feel like all of that is almost like your personal, am I ready? Like steps to, am I ready? How do you, when you have now the financials of the company, or when you have just where the health of that company is, what are some things that you're looking at when you're trying to figure out now truly, is this business viable? Is this company viable? Or am I getting myself into, a deeper trench that I don't want to be in anymore?
Sure. Yeah. I would say do your competitor analysis. If it is a business in the kids space, look at other competitors in that same space and how are they operating. I would mystery shop them. I've done this myself when I bought the Gymborees. I would stop by, and I did have kids, so I pretended like I was going to enroll them in that program. And it's interesting how much information you can learn from their performance, or what's really
Mm,
happening, and you could compare, right? You get a good comparison or contrast on what is that brand doing versus this brand. Most of my experience has been around franchising, and one thing I will say, Girja, is as a first time business owner, for me franchising was the best way to go. Usually the franchise royalties are in the range of 8 to 11%, and some people say shy away from that because they say, if I make 100K, I don't want to be giving that percentage away as a royalty. But honestly, for someone like me, it was the best thing ever because I got an operations manual, I got
mm,
a guide to run the business, and I also had a brand name, right? Name
mm-hmm.
that I didn't have to establish for myself.
Yeah.
Again, there might be some people who love doing something like that. I remember the best advice I got from my lawyer when we first invested in our businesses was, if you break even in 18 months, you're golden. You'll survive, you'll be able
Yeah.
to do anything. And I think that applies to whether you start from scratch, or you even buy something via acquisition. It's really called acquisition entrepreneurship. There is a good book out there as well for your listeners if they're
Mm-hmm.
interested in looking this up. It's called Buy Then Build by Walker Diebold. And he is a business broker with Quiet Light Brokerage. It's a firm that only does e-commerce businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also someone who's a speaker at several universities. And this book is truly, when I read it, it reminded me of all the steps that we had taken
Yeah.
businesses, because it talks about how to analyze your return on investment
Mm-hmm.
from a perspective of, how much cash are you putting in to buy the business? Are you going to get an SBA loan? Are you going to finance some of it?
Mm-hmm.
So really a good guide, almost like a
Mm-hmm.
guide to acquisition entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, such great advice. And I actually truly love that you're like, I'm going to go and scope out the competitors and I'm going to go do some market evaluation in person. I think that is so cool and stealthy at the same time. I don't think I could possibly do that. But what I really want to highlight though is the fact that how, when you're doing a franchise, when you're franchising, you're right, you're not reinventing the wheel. It's already done for you in that sense, right? The standard operating procedures are already done for you. Your manuals are there. So you're really not creating all that. And truly, when you are starting a business, I know I am constantly creating SOPs all the time. I'm telling my team to do it all the time because I feel so lost otherwise. There's so many moving parts in a business, but I'm sure that when you are buying an existing business, there are other challenges that you might be facing that are not something you're facing in a business that you're starting from scratch, like from the ground up. So, what are some of the challenges that you have faced, just with Gymboree or even with Idea Lab, and how did you overcome them?
Sure, yeah. So there are definitely challenges that you face that are different, because when you're starting from scratch, like you just said, you're the one setting up those SOPs
Yeah.
and establishing how you want to run things. So when you come into an existing business, things are being done and being run a certain way, right? So that was a big learning for me in those early days at Gymboree. And I purchased a successful running franchise, so it wasn't in the red. It didn't need my support. The owner was selling because she was retiring. So when I stepped in, my first thing to do was not to rock the boat, because as the saying goes, if it's not broken, don't fix it, right?
Yeah.
So, and that took a lot of restraint. I will tell you that, I had my own learnings through management or through my business school, that I was like, I want to try this and I want to try that. But I had a group of people that, anytime I would go to them with my ideas, they would say, oh, well, we tried this, 5 years ago and it didn't work. Or we tried this 10 years ago, because it was a seasoned staff group that had been with the prior owner for a long time. So I did face that as a challenge. And people would probably laugh hearing the story that, you're an owner, you've bought the business, you're going to set, oh no, this is what I want to try. This is what I would really want to do. But I had to honestly pick my battles, Girija, and figure out, is this truly worth trying it out? And on some of them I did, on some of them I didn't. It really said we tried maybe we used to do a program called On the Goes, where we would take our classes to brick and mortar other businesses or churches and daycares, and go do these classes for babies so that they would get exposed to our program. And when areas like Discovery Green opened, when they had those outdoor spaces, I wanted to go out there and do these parachute times for babies so that they would get exposed to our brand. And of course, it was a lot of work on our staff. And my operations director clearly thought this was not going to bring us new business. But when we pushed on it and we did it, till date today, the brand is doing it because it does bring about exposure. And in that brand, we always hear mom saying, I didn't even know you existed. Like, I didn't know something like this was around. And it's probably the same with Idea Lab. A lot of families are still learning about STEAM and STEM after school, and who all the players are in that space.
That's such an important point that you just raised, that when you are purchasing an existing business, you are also purchasing everything that's with it. It's not like you're eliminating the entire staff or the way things are functioning. And so people who have been there longer than you have been there are probably sometimes might even undermine or question your capabilities. And how did you're not just your woman, you're also a minority, and here you are trying to run this business now. And so how did you overcome that, those challenges when you faced them? And then what were some did you do any actual actions to say, no, I am the person that's in charge right now? Like, how do you create and establish that authority? A better way to put it out there.
Yeah. No, I love how you phrase that question. How do you establish authority, right? Here's the outgoing retired business owner who they have known, that voice they've listened to. And here in comes this person who has no experience in the education space, first business. So for me, I think what I first did, my first step was to build trust with the team and truly just get to know them, even aside from what they do at the business. What makes you wake up in the morning and come into work and be excited about flying that parachute? This was a thing we would always say at Gymboree. This is our happy place where we all have smiles and we fly the parachute for all the little babies in our classes. And that truly helped me get to know what drives them. And then I was able to really figure out, okay, what are the steps I'm going to take to motivate this group in any of the changes that I was making. So if there were changes that were being made, then there was a lot of thought through processes or also communication. I mean, I cannot iterate enough about communication, Girija, because, and I see that in my role today as well, is, if they hear it once, they hear it twice, the third time is when it's probably going to resonate. And that's when the team realizes, okay, we're doing this and we're doing it for a good reason. An example I'll tell you at my existing firm is we set aside time to work on our values, vision, and mission. And, my team was probably wondering, why are we setting aside, so much time to work on this, and why is it important? But, we came up with 10 of our values that, and one of them, you're going to love this. The first one, it starts with kids first, always. And our last one ends with have fun. And I always tell my team, I was like, if you're not having fun, let's talk. Something's wrong there, right? So even though your team might not realize the importance of what you're doing, but as we keep iterating it as leaders and bringing it up again and again on these conversations we have with them, the message does resonate on why are we doing what we're doing.
Mm. And I know for a fact that you exude so much positive energy and calmness also. And I think it's so nice to have that as one of the core missions of the business is to have fun. Because, we, again, going back to what we were saying before, you have to say, okay, I have a leadership mentality. I have a leader mentality, which includes compassion, empathy, which includes being a cheerleader. And also, it includes to be firm when you need to be firm and to have that razor sharp focus when you need to have that as well. And I do personally believe that you are such a beautiful blend of all of that and such a wonderful leader. So let's fast forward a little bit to, Idea Lab. And I know you exited Gymboree. So what were the emotions and the feelings that were happening at the time? And then how much gap was there between exiting Gymboree and getting into Idea Lab?
Sure, yeah. So emotions were a ton. Once you do invest in a business, it becomes your baby and it becomes your little child, and you do want to leave it in trusting hands.
How long
And
were you there?
8 years.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah. So a long time. It took me about 2 years to wrap my head around the exit. I started feeling where I'd reached a stage where I wanted more. I wanted to challenge myself more and not do more of the same. So that was a part of the reason why I planned the exit. Now, one thing business owners don't tell each other enough is it takes time to sell these businesses. They don't sell overnight. When you are looking at investing in a business, think through your exit strategy and put that in your business plan. Am I
Mm.
going to run this for 5 years? Am I going to run this for 8 years? Your franchise agreement in general, with all franchises, is for 10 years. You don't have
Mm.
to run it for 10 years. You can exit and sell in the middle. But, think through that process, because you are committed. If it's a brick and mortar, you're committed to that rent. You're committed to paying those franchise fees. So all of those are commitments that, we are signing ourselves up for.
What
Um,
solid advice. I mean, that's such solid advice because these are practical things that you just don't think about. And sorry to interrupt you, but like even with with your contract that you're saying, the franchisee contract, make sure it's written in there that you can exit early and there is a termination provision in there. And then what does that look like? Does
yeah,
that look like you're paying them for that? Or what is the dent that's going to be happening? Or is it going to be easy or is it going to be hard? And you're right. Like it is just so important to have all of that in writing.
yeah, no, and Girija, you bring up such a valid point. Get an attorney to review that contract.
Yes. Yes, please
Invest
don't
in.
DIY it.
No, do not DIY it, because trust me, you will, and I've had this happen to myself. You will
Yeah.
sign a document and not realize what you're signing. And hopefully this doesn't happen to anyone on the call, but it will at some point come back to bite you, and you will regret not investing those $2,000, a couple of thousands of dollars, maybe even in a legal review. It is so worth it.
It's so important. I think a lot of times people don't realize some of the things that really pop up that become really highly contested is can you exit? What does exit look like? Like what I was saying earlier, are you paying a fee to exit? Are you getting something when you're exiting? What does that look like? It should be literally step by step explained in that document.
Absolutely.
And then who owns what?
Yes. Yes.
Intellectual property. It is so important. And yes, by default, probably the company owns it. But are you wanting to say, no, if I am creating something, I want to own it and I'm licensing it to you? I mean, hello, for everybody listening out there, you can do that. There are default rules, but you can absolutely contract around them. So I just,
No, I mean, I'll be the first person to say, spend that time, spend the
yeah.
resources, spend the money. You are investing thousands of dollars into this business, and that is a part of that cycle that you need to go through and understand. What does the fine print really say? I mean, we're all smart individuals. We can read through a legal document, but when it's a 100-page franchise agreement, get your legal advice on what does it
Yeah,
really.
absolutely. So you exited, and then what did you do after that?
Sure. So here I was thinking, calling it my semi-retirement, and my friends were celebrating me, saying, "Oh my gosh, you're the youngest person to have retired." Of course, that didn't last too long at all. One of our investments in 2017 was Idea Lab. I had come in and gotten a board seat and been one of the part owners of the company. They were growing in terms of franchising, and they were looking for somebody with franchise experience. I'd been a franchisee. So all the boxes were checked. And,
How did you come across the opportunity? How did that happen?
my CPA actually brought the opportunity to us. And this is something else, not enough books say this, but your CPAs and your lawyers will bring you all the business flow and the deals. So other than business brokers, because they see it, right? It
Yeah.
comes across their plate. There might be somebody who's their client, or they might hear about it. So
Yeah.
it wasn't this wasn't an opportunity which was advertised somewhere or somebody was looking for a board member. It truly just came through my own internal network.
Hmm.
So what started off as a once a month commitment in terms of board meetings, then once the board saw that I had more time on my hands, pretty quickly I was elected to step in. The franchise was growing and they needed someone with more hands-on operations experience to get these franchises online. So that's when in 2019 my semi-retirement was short-lived when I got elected to step in as the president at Idea Lab.
Wow. I love that. Ah. So, when you stepped into Idea Lab as in your new role, what were some of the challenges that you faced in this brand new space again? And how did you overcome that?
Sure, yeah. So, pretty quickly after stepping in, of course, the world went into lockdown.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I was into, month four of being in my new role, getting to know the team, building our team up. And what we knew as norm was completely, put out the door, where I thought when we first went into these lockdown orders were issued that it would be a couple weeks. Of course, now that has lasted, a year and a half and continues. But, going back to where mindsets were in March, the first thing we did, you have to, when you're thrown into this frenzy, your first thing to think of is how do you support your customers, right? And so in our case, our customers are our franchisees, and then beyond that, our customers are the children that come to our Idea Lab facilities. And these essential care workers had to go into work, right? They didn't have an option like me where I could sit at home
Mm-hmm.
on my laptop, and I had my fourth and seventh grader studying from home. So, luckily, since all of our locations are licensed as daycare centers, we were allowed to be
Mm.
open, and our franchisees were allowed to take in kids. Of course, all sorts of restrictions, temperatures at the door, mask mandates, and COVID tracking and things like that. We rolled out very quickly a new operations procedure, a new SOP, if you will, which we thought was here for a brief moment, but it's something we follow till date. We did a couple things, Girija. We rolled out a program called Idea Lab Plus, which is essentially where children who are doing virtual school could come to Idea Lab centers, and we would take care of their virtual schooling along with some STEAM or STEM based activities layered in throughout their day.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we all saw, virtual school was not exactly the full day of school like we see when our kids go into schools.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one. And our second big pivot or big investment last year was into a tech platform. So we took our existing content and we converted them into interactive videos in order to help our franchisees if they had to teach a virtual class, or if they had to figure out how to train their staff without being in person. They could do it through these interactive videos. And everything that we do at Idea Lab has a hands-on experience to it. There's either you're making slime and you're building a circuit around with either the slime or the Play-Doh, or you might be doing a hands-on coding class. So everything had a hands-on component to it. So these videos are not where you could just stick a child in front of them and they could watch it. You do need a facilitator or a guide on the side on the other end, especially since we work with the kindergarten through fifth age range. That's primarily our sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
So where I was going with this is our franchisees really appreciated a platform that has come out, and they can use that internally at their facilities today and also at third-party locations.
Mm.
And that truly is something that got us through this pandemic, even though it's not really over. But we are seeing confidence now in families coming back in the summer for in-person summer camp experiences back with us. And for those families who are not comfortable yet, we still have these options where they could do these
Mm-hmm.
classes at home.
I saw how quickly Idea Lab very brilliantly actually adapted to the new surroundings and the ecosystem that we're living in right now. And you provided so many different options. So all of these different ways that you are now offering the services of Idea Lab, were those options created by the team, or was it something that you were like, oh, I have this idea, and then of course, the team is there to execute it? And how did these diversifications happen in the sense of idea and execution?
Sure, yeah. And as I say, ideas are a dime a dozen, right? Like we can come up with ideas every day, but making them happen is the true
Yeah.
key. So it really has been a true team effort. The whole team rallied together, and we've probably never worked this hard as we did in these last 12 months into creating some of these new platforms and literally turning them around overnight.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea was from the leadership team, and we basically are three of us. There's myself, there's Cynthia Tucson, who is a majority investor in the firm, and then we also have outside counsel. His name is Rick Mansell. So the three of us kind of came up with the ideas, and then we broke it down into how do we execute this and roll it out to the franchisees. And I'm really proud to say it was honestly a team effort, because it's
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have been possible with just one
Yeah.
person trying to execute it and making it happen. What started us off on this path was when the lockdown was issued. We tried doing Facebook Live experiments where
Mm-hmm.
one
I
of them,
remember this.
yeah, one of them went viral in our space and got like 5,000 parents doing it at home with their kids. Was they built a
Wow.
robot with Amazon boxes uh,
Yes.
that we have at home, and that little 10-minute, 15-minute thing, led families into, oh my gosh, we love this, and send us more of these types of things that we could do. It led into a newsletter, led into DIY projects. And then now, as people are feeling more comfortable coming back in, we still have those great same experiments at the Idea Lab centers.
That is just so brilliant, because not only did you leverage the Amazon boxes that people are ordering like 100 a day,
Right?
and you're like, hey, this is just literally in the front of your house. Let's use that. But you're also now leveraging social media, you're leveraging tech, because everybody, especially during quarantine time, is home and they have access to everything, but they just don't know what to do with their time. And this was such a great way of serving your community, because it was free
Mhm.
and you're serving your community, but at the same time, you're looking at what they need and what makes it easy. I mean, it's just so brilliant. The whole model is so brilliant in my brain. Like, you're using what's there, easy accessible to do it also, and easy to follow through and see a project from beginning to end. So
Right.
that was truly very brilliant. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you have shared so many nuggets of education with us today about acquisition entrepreneurship. And acquisition entrepreneurship is definitely a beast of its own, and I feel like you are doing such a wonderful job, because this is your zone of genius. You're actually really awesome at it. And so thank you so much for being with us today, sharing all this stuff with us today. So before we head out, though, I always like to ask a few questions, fun questions, and then also some, but when you are facing challenges or things that are just not feeling good, what is your anchor? What is something that you hold on to that keeps you steady?
Yeah, great question. And I feel like those moments have happened quite often these days, right? Um,
Yes.
I think my anchor, I would say, something that I resonate to now is doing just 10 minutes of yoga and meditation in the mornings. I've made that a part of my morning ritual, and it keeps me more grounded. It's a simple 10-minute sequence that I go follow on YouTube. Nothing fancy about it, but this instructor asks you to pick a word for the day and
Mm.
make that word your focus, and that helps me think about that word as I go through these challenges, and just count to 10, think about that word, and maybe react if we need to, if we're in those tough situations. Really just giving yourself that 10 minutes of me time. And for all of those out there on these calls, I know our time is our most precious commodity, and carving out a little bit something for yourself is critical.
Wonderful advice. And then, so if you had to give us some of your favorite biz tools, things that you just love and you can't live without, what are some of those business tools that you use?
Oh my gosh, business tools. So
Any app? I mean, an app,
yeah. Oh yeah, app. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
love Clubhouse. That's been my latest. And I know, Girija, you're on Clubhouse, or you have been, and
I'm not as active, but yeah.
yeah,
It's a great place to gain traction for a new audience.
it is a great place to gain interaction for
Yeah.
sure. For me, the what I've used Clubhouse for is if I do ever have time where I can expose myself to content and be learning and listening, that's when I'll log into a couple of these rooms. There, for those of your users who don't know what Clubhouse is, it's an online, almost like live podcasting app that you could go into different rooms based on your interests. Anything from cooking, yoga, meditation to business to marketing. And I just use my moments to listen in, and I don't participate. People who hear me talk about Clubhouse say, "Do you participate?" And I'm not one of those. I'm on mute all the time. I don't ask questions, but I'm making notes. Sometimes you hear things that just resonate with you.
Yeah.
I go for a walk or a run. I'm usually on Clubhouse as well.
I love that. It's so funny. So now, how do people reach out to you, and how do they connect with you?
Sure.
How can they connect with Idea Lab?
Absolutely. So, we are actively franchising. We took a pause from franchising last year to focus inward and to focus on our franchisees and to sustain and survive this tough time that we all went through together. But we are back. We're stronger now than we've ever been before. So we are actively looking, and our Uber focus right now is in Texas. So if anybody is passionate about education, wanting to bring this franchise to your community, our programs are offered year round. So you've got after school classes to summer camps, which are really bustling for us right now as well. If you're interested in that, definitely visit our website. It's idealabkids.com. And then you can definitely email me, and I'm available at Devina@idealabkids.com.
Perfect. All of that's going to be in the show notes.
Perfect.
And thank you so much for being with us today and sharing all of these gems of knowledge. It was just so great to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Girija. And I'm for anyone who's looking at businesses, whether Idea Lab or anything else, feel free to reach out, because I get very excited by other people starting off on this journey, and super eager and always willing to help people. So,
love it.
Thank you so much for joining Law Chat with Girija. I love these kind of stories and conversations where we can be real, honest, and open, and having fun at the same time. I hope you are inspired and motivated to keep doing the amazing work you are doing. If this is something that gave you all those feels and then some, truly motivated and inspired for you, you can show your love in all or one of these ways. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and share this video with your community and tell them about it, or share with somebody that can benefit from it. I look forward to seeing you next time on another episode of Law Chat, and until then, keep moving forward. Bye.